Hello and welcome to the Building Blocks of Jazz. Today we're going to look at ragtime, and specifically we're going to look at the importance St. Louis played in the genre. To help me with this discussion, I've got a good friend of mine, Mr. Brian Cather, who is president of the Friends of Scott Joplin, which is St. Louis's de facto Joplin and ragtime organization. So Brian, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So the first thing I have to ask, obviously, is ragtime, what is it?
Ragtime is a polyrhythmic musical form in which we have a steady march-like beat in the bass with a syncopated melody line superimposed over it.
So for us normal people, me included, what does that all mean?
Well, say the phrase, "throw it away."
Throw it away.
That's a steady beat. You could march to that.
So, for example, throw it away, throw it away.
Right. Now say the phrase, "take out the garbage."
Take out the garbage.
That's an unsteady beat. It's syncopated. Syncopation's a beat falling where you don't expect it.
So if I take, for example, those two phrases and put them on top of each other with some music, I'll get something that sounds like ragtime.
Absolutely.
So, throw it away, throw it away. Take out the garbage. So let's actually take a listen to an example of ragtime. This is a piano roll that was recorded by Scott Joplin in the late 1800s and issued in about 1915. This is his famous Maple Leaf Rag. Now, because of ragtime's popularity, in the public's eye, it was very much seen as just another form of popular music. But to Joplin, he was really trying to create another form of classical music, and not just classical music, but an Afrocentric form of classical music. Is that not correct?
That is correct. He'd come here at the invitation of Alfred Ernst, the conductor of the St. Louis Symphony, who invited him to come from Sedalia, Missouri to St. Louis to study under him. However, the two never worked together because they were never in town at the same time, but Ernst connected Joplin with other musicians with whom he could study, and while he was here, his music gained form and complexity and structure.
So in this vein, let's take a listen to one of Joplin's compositions that was done right here in St. Louis, and listen for the contrast from the earlier Maple Leaf Rag example to this, which is called the Chrysanthemums. Now, Joplin was a major figure in ragtime, probably the most well-known and the most well-known today, but he is not, as is commonly thought, the father of the ragtime genre.
Absolutely not. There were many, many composers of ragtime music. St. Louis's Irene Giblin, probably the best known of a small army of female ragtime composers. There was James Scott from Carthage, Missouri, who was very much in the Joplin form and style, but brought his own elements to the music. But probably the best known candidate for the father of ragtime would be Tom Turpin, the first African American to have a rag published.
So, as Brian mentioned, Tom Turpin being the first African American to have a rag published, let's listen to it. This is his Harlem Rag. After hearing an example of a ragtime piece from an important St. Louis composer, Tom Turpin, I'm wondering what was the importance and impact of St. Louis on ragtime?
St. Louis was important because it was here that white investors first realized that people were willing to pay for authentic African American ragtime.
And there was even a school in St. Louis that offered ragtime?
Absolutely. The Axel Christensen School of Popular Music taught ragtime to thousands of students for over 2 decades.
Now, ragtime being a precursor to jazz, there are pianists that show us a transitional element between ragtime into Harlem Stride into jazz, people like Jelly Roll Morton. But a lesser known figure like U.B. Blake represents the last of those transitional figures, and he actually died in the 1980s. So this last musical example is his version of Maple Leaf Rag, which was recorded in the late 1960s. So thank you for joining me on the Building Blocks of Jazz. And Brian, thank you for being my guest.
Thank you for having me.
So as we leave, I'm going to play you an example of stride piano, which came out of ragtime and is a mixture of ragtime and some jazz elements. So this is a favorite tune of mine entitled Back Home Again in Indiana.